Korea launched an intermediate-range ballistic missile that flew 2,850 miles with speeds topping out at roughly Mach 17 over Japan's northern region. The missile landed in the Pacific Ocean after flying for roughly 22 minutes. As a result of the test, Japanese authorities issued a shelter-in-place warning to the island of Hokkaido. Experts believe the missile was the Hwasong-12, the same missile type that overflew Japan in 2017. US President Joe Biden and the Japanese Prime Minister spoke by phone and condemned the test in the strongest terms, calling it a danger to the Japanese people, and Biden reinforced the ironclad US commitment to the defense of Japan. The tests by the North Korea come as joint drills were taking place by the US, South Korea and Japan, and as the US Vice President visited the fortified border between the Koreas. North Korea accuses the United States and its allies of threatening it with exercises and defense buildups. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei responded to the biggest protests in Iran in years. Speaking to the cadre of police students in Tehran, Khamenei said he was deeply heartbroken by the death of the 22-year-old Mahsa Amini in police custody, calling it a tragic incident. However, he lambasted the protests as a foreign plot to destabilize Iran, echoing authorities' previous comments. This rioting was planned, he said. These riots and insecurities were designed by America and the Zionist regime and their employees. Iran's latest protest movement has produced some of the nation's most widespread unrest in years, emerging as a response to Amini's death. It has since grown into an open challenge to the Iranian leadership. The demonstrations have tapped a deep well of grievances in Iran, including the country's political repression and ailing economy. The unrest has continued in Tehran and far-flung provinces, even as authorities have disrupted internet access and blocked social media apps. Several democratic lawmakers have lambasted the decision made by OPEC and Russia to cut oil production by 2 million barrels a day. US lawmakers are proposing legislation that would remove all US troops and missile systems from Saudi Arabia and the UAE, two of the oil cartel's largest producers. They also accuse Saudi Arabia of siding with Russia to raise prices amid signs that the global economy is slowing. We see no reason why American troops and contractors should continue to provide this service to countries that are actively working against us. If Saudi Arabia and the UAE want to help Putin, they should look to him for their defense, the lawmakers said in a statement. It is time for the United States to resume acting like the superpower in our relationship with our client states in the Gulf. They have made a choice and should live with the consequences. Our troops and military equipment are needed elsewhere. Earlier this year, US President Joe Biden made a visit to the oil-rich kingdom and met with its Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in an attempt to repair the country's relationship, but it seems the US doesn't have the influence it used to. Joe Biden has warned the world could face Armageddon if Vladimir Putin uses tactical nuclear weapon to try to win the war in Ukraine. The US President said, "First time since the Cuban Missile Crisis, we have the threat of a nuclear weapon if in fact things continue down the path they are going. We are trying to figure out what is Putin's off-ramp." One fear is that he could use a short-range tactical nuclear weapon to try to stop Ukraine's counter-offensive in its tracks and force Kiev to negotiate and cede territory. Putin and his officials have repeatedly threatened to use Russia's nuclear arsenal in an effort to deter the US and its allies from supporting Ukraine. Despite such alarming talk, there are some real-world practical limits to any use of nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Using a strategic nuclear warhead or a tactical nuclear weapon in eastern Ukraine would likely see the winds push the radioactive fallout into Russia. Thus, a large strategic nuclear strike could affect Russian territory even more. Russia wants to conquer Ukraine to achieve strategic depth, and radioactive Ukraine will not achieve that for the Russians.